Welcome to Intense course on media literacy for students. This is a course that we started on 12th of October, and today is the last session as far as the academic sessions are concerned, though we will having the valedictory on 31st of October, but today is the 12th lecture. As we planned that we will be having 12 sessions and each session will be of 90 minutes, and that is how this whole course has been designed as of 18 hours. So during this course of different sessions since the time we started, different sessions were taken by resource persons belonging to the two institutions, Adamas University, College Noida, and these are the two institutions which in fact have joined hands to launch this course. And I mean, as far as this objective of launching this course is concerned, we were of the opinion that there has to be some such platform, some such course wherein we can provide all that knowledge and understanding to the students which is necessary for them to understand the media, the functioning of media, the content of media, and then how in the present day times wherein social media has come on the center stage, how this during this time we can take care of the problems of misinformation or malinformation or disinformation, and the way that this all this information is spread uh, through our forwarding of the messages on the WhatsApp or through sharing of posts on the Facebook and tweeting and retweeting. So obviously we need to understand that we are not falling prey to any such evil designs wherein we become instrument in the spread of the fake information or fake news. So the only way out to avoid this kind of situation is that we are well informed, we are aware with regard to what is worth sharing, what is not, which contents are to be accepted, are to be believed, which are not to be believed. So this is something which is of dire need in today's time, in today's society. And since the time this idea was mooted by Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, when DME was having this 10 days world's first digital live conference in June. So in the concluding session, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary mooted this idea, and then obviously we both agreed on this. Then we have to do something for the sake of society. So this whole course on intense course on this media literacy, it is part of our CSR activity, and we have chosen the school students so that this is the age wherein if we can impart the right things, that will go a long way. As these students will grow, they will join the higher education and all in universities and colleges. If they are well versed with the issues related to media literacy and related to media content, then obviously not only that they will act with more responsibility, they will also impart this knowledge to their peer, to their friends, to their family members even, and then many more people will be will be saved from moving on a wrong track, because most of the time we do this unknowingly. We do not know what is the hidden agenda of somebody, and somebody sends a message and we immediately forward that messages, and we find that in many messages even this is written forwarded to 10 people. Then you are serving a purpose in the society, whereas the fact of the matter is that you are become a victim of rumor mongers. A number of such incidents have happened wherein mass killings are happening, lynchings are happening right from Assam to Palghar in Maharashtra, wherein based on the rumors, the human lives were taken by the frenzy crowd. So as an academic person, we the only thing that we can do, we can create awareness on such kind of issues. So two schools I would like to name them: Mayur School Noida and Delhi World Public School Noida Extension. They accepted our request to let their students join these sessions. So the students of these two sessions are joining this course in a big way. And also we have our own students in DME, some of them have joined, some of the students of the Adamas University have also joined this course. So I believe that whatever has happened during the last 12 days, that would have definitely benefited the students. We will be having the evaluation after today's session, and then we have the valedictory session on 31st, as I told you already. Now, as far as the resource persons are concerned, the faculty members of Delhi Metropolitan Education and the faculty members of Adamas University, the School of Media, Communication and Fashion, they have been taking sessions in this course. One session was also taken by Mr. Nimish Kapoor, who is a senior scientist in Vigyan Prasar in the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, and he took a session on fact checking. So that he provided us the tools which we can use to be sure whether some content is genuine or not, and whether that is to be believed, and whether that is to be further disseminated to other people. So this is in nutshell about the whole course and the objective behind. And today we have with us Shefali Chibber, who is assistant professor in DME Media School, and she will be taking today's session on the right to privacy, because privacy in any case is a very important aspect of the media literacy, and it is a very important aspect for all those people who are very active on social media. So to begin with, if Yashasika Yadav is there, then I will request her to come online. And and I would also like to mention these two names, Yashasika Yadav, who is assistant professor in DME Media School, Delhi Metropolitan Education. And so she has been working as a coordinator of this course. And then Dr. Asha Singh, who is associate professor in the School of Media, Communication and Fashion in Adamas University. So these two persons have been the pillars in running this course continuously for the last almost 17, 18 days. So I hand it over to Yashasrika Yadav.
Sir, I guess everyone is waiting for the lecture, and privacy is a very important topic today, specifically since especially all our students are digital natives, so they should know what to share online and what not to share, and also very relevant today in the Sushant Singh Rajput media case where privacy was flouted. So I guess over to you, Shefali ma'am.
So I'll start with the presentation, but before that, I would like to say thank you, Amrish sir, for giving me the opportunity of being a part of the intense course on media literacy. I really feel very lucky to be a part of this program. And as you just said, sir, media literacy, for media literacy, it's very important for everybody to know what is privacy and to be acquainted with the concept of privacy, because without this, they will not be able to understand what elements they are supposed to share with everybody and what not. So I'll start with the presentation directly. So the topic is about the navigating information online, that will cover the right to privacy. It will cover safeguarding own privacy and respecting other people's privacy as well. So when we talk about right to privacy, it doesn't just talk about our own privacy. It also includes the privacy of others as well. It's not just our privacy that matters, it's the others' privacy that matters as well. So this is what I'll be covering in my presentation. So I'll start with basically what is privacy, the literal meaning of privacy. It is the ability of an individual or a group of people to seclude themselves, and how a person shares information, and what limit that person shares information. It is entirely up to that individual. Maybe for me, my privacy matters to me the most. Maybe I don't like sharing anything, but similarly, maybe a friend of mine likes sharing everything. So the level of exposure that I want to give people about my life can vary from person to person. So the concept of privacy lies in the ability of an individual or a particular group to seclude some information about themselves and hence present themselves selectively in front of people. Further, the idea behind privacy is to let an individual decide what information regarding himself or herself he wants to make public. It is entirely upon that individual to decide what information he wants to share. Any individual should not be pressured to share the information that he is not comfortable sharing, and no other individual should no other individual should also intrude in someone's privacy if that person isn't allowing that. Okay, so privacy is not a verb for hiding something from someone. It's not an act. It is a noun that is defined as a state of being alone and not watched or disturbed by other people. So privacy is not an act that we do, that, but it is considered, it should be considered as a noun, and should be considered as a state in which a person wants to be alone and doesn't want any other person to intrude in his privacy. Okay, so this is what privacy is. And in our constitution, in the Indian constitution, the article 21 explains the right to privacy, and the article states that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to a procedure established by the law. So this right is basically, this article 21 basically talks about right to life and right to personal liberty. The right to privacy is covered in the right to life and right to personal liberty. And it came under this article 21 recently in the year 2017, when there was a case in the court regarding the Aadhaar scheme of the Indian government. So there were a lot of people who were against Aadhaar being linked to the bank accounts because they believe that it intrudes our privacy, the citizens' privacy. But there were again statements that were given in the court that there is no specific law, no specific right to privacy. So basically, Aadhaar is not intruding anybody's privacy legally. So the nine bench of judges, they included the right to privacy in the right to life and personal liberty, ultimately making it a fundamental right. And the right to privacy is also considered as a heart of the fundamental right. The entire Article 21 that talks about right to life and right to personal liberty is considered as the heart of fundamental rights. The reason that it is called as the heart of fundamental rights is that if an individual, if a citizen of a country doesn't have a right to his own life, if he doesn't has any personal liberty, then what good are the other fundamental rights to him? The basic right to any individual, to any human being, is the right to his or her own life. If he doesn't have that, then the other rights don't hold that much importance. So the Supreme Court of India has described the right to life and personal liberty as the heart of fundamental rights. Life in the Article 21 of the Constitution is not merely the physical act of breathing. It does not connote mere existence or continued drudgery through life. It has a much wider meaning, which includes right to live with human dignity, right to livelihood, right to health, right to pollution-free air, etc. There are many elements that are included in the Article 21 that talks about the right to life. But the main purpose of including all these rights was to make it clear to the citizens that when we talk about life, it's not just the breathing living beings. It's not just about living beings. It's not just about the whole living organism. It's about what right the citizens of a country have to their own life, which includes their right to livelihood, which includes their right to health. It includes right to pollution-free air. It includes their all the other rights that ultimately make their life better. So the provisions that are included under the Article 21 are, I have divided them into two different segments. One is right to life and the other is right to personal liberty. So the first that we'll talk about is right to life. So right to life, under right to life, there are four different segments. The first one is right to live with human dignity. what we can understand this by is that every individual has certain basic needs, right? The need for shelter, proper shelter, need for food, need for clothing. So these, if these three basic needs of an individual are fulfilled, we can assume that that person is living a dignified life. So that is what right to live with human dignity states, that any individual, any citizen of our country should be able to lead a dignified life. He or she should have have proper clothing. He or she should have proper shelter and proper food to eat, and proper food, water to drink as well. So moving on, the next is right against sexual harassment at workplace. So this act does not only talk about right to life, but it also talks about gender equality. The explanation that is given under right against sexual be it a male, be it a female, or be it any other gender, all should be equal at their workplace. No particular individual belonging to a particular gender should be harassed on the basis of their gender. Uh, Sorry, I'll just need a minute.
Um,
Sir, just give me a second. I think there
Yeah.
was some lag. Sorry, sir. So I was talking about right against sexual harassment at workplace. So this right basically talks about that every individual, irrespective of the gender that they belong to, should be treated equally at work, and irrespective of their gender, they should be equally treated, and they should not be harassed in any case. And the next is the third one, that is the right to reputation. So this is a very important right that is mentioned in the right to life. The reason being, when we talk about a good quality of life of any individual, it also includes the reputation that an individual has, that a citizen has. So it is very obvious, and we all can relate with it, that if an individual's reputation goes down, his or her quality of life in one way, maybe psychologically, it reduces, because reputation matters the most to an individual, and it is his or her right to maintain a good reputation. And if there is somebody who's trying to bring him in bad light, he has a right to defend himself. So when we talk about right to reputation, it does not only prevail while the person is alive, but also when the person is deceased, especially when the person is deceased, because then he is not in a position to defend himself. So no individual, especially when he or she is deceased, should be his or her reputation should be brought in a bad light, which is recently happening. As Yashasvika ma'am said, the issue of privacy was brought up again during the Sushant Singh Rajput case. So again, right to reputation was to some extent violated in that case. So next was right to medical care. So in order to have a good life, in order to have a healthy life, it is important that every citizen has access to a good medical care, right? Because there's rarely somebody who will have a life in which he will not require any medical care. When we say that a person should have a good quality of life, or when he or she should have a right to his life, he should be able to access the medical care, and irrespective of his religion, irrespective of the state that he belongs to, irrespective of the caste that he belongs to, and no other individual has a right to stop anybody to avail the medical care that he deserves. So these all points, 4 points, are included in the right to life. Next, moving on, is the right to personal liberty. I've included broadly two rights under the right to personal liberty. First is right to privacy, and the next is right against illegal detention. So the right to privacy, I will say, is the most important one because this is what the presentation is about. And when we talk about privacy, it might sound that it's not a very important topic, but it is the most important topic, especially in today's time when our entire lives are dependent upon the social media. It is very important to understand the concept of privacy so that we can protect our own privacy, okay, protect our own data, and also help others who are in need. So right to privacy, as I earlier mentioned, is all basically about preventing data leakage, preventing people to share information that they are not comfortable sharing, and prevent the intruders to share information without the consent of the individual whose information it is. And the next is the right against illegal detention. It basically is about the right of the criminals also. Why? Because there have been certain cases in the past where the accused have been illegally detained. Okay, what happens during illegal detainment is that their families are not informed, their acquaintances are not informed, and they are not allowed to have a lawyer. So what right against illegal detention says is, whenever the police or any other concerned authority is arresting or detaining an individual, they are supposed to put it on records, and that individual has a right to call their acquaintances, be it family or their lawyer or their friends, and they have a right to proper food and proper communication while they are in the jail. So this is what the provisions under the Article 21 are. So moving on with the right to privacy. Although the debates over privacy have been going on for a very long time, it was in August 2017 that the Supreme Court of India passed a judgment and declared the right to privacy as a fundamental right protected under Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. So as I explained in the previous slides, that it was in 2017 that right to privacy was made a fundamental right and was included under Article 21. Right to privacy has been included in the Article 21 under the right to life and personal liberty that entitles a citizen to be left alone without any unwarranted interference. According to the Supreme Court, the right of privacy is a fundamental right. It is right which protects the inner sphere of the individual from the interference from both state and non-state actors and allows the individual to make autonomous life choices. So the judgment from the Supreme Court states that the right to privacy is a fundamental right, and it is one single right that protects the inner sphere of an individual and enables him to protect his information and protect his or her own data from the state, and enables him to make independent life choices that are not influenced by others, and that choices that are not forced upon him. Next is the right to privacy is not an absolute right. It is a very important point to understand that although the right to privacy is our fundamental right, but it is not an absolute right. It may be subject to certain reasonable restrictions for prevention of crime, public disorder, and protection of others. So there are instances when our fundamental right can be put upon reasonable restrictions, and they are for our own good. Because let's assume that there is there's a criminal who's being arrested and whose data police wants to analyze, but he can say that it's his right to privacy, he will not show the data. So in that case, there are certain reasonable restrictions for prevention of crime or public harmony or for the protection of others that the right of privacy can be evoked. The right, however, is a pre-social media era. When social media gained popularity in India and cases related to privacy came into light, a new act, that is Information Technology Act, was introduced in the year 2000. Although this act does not completely safeguard the privacy, it can, however, dilute the problems to some extent. So the Information Technology Act was first introduced in the year 2000, and it was introduced with the aim of curbing problems related to technology and to promote the digital media, but it does not completely safeguard the privacy. However, the amendments that were made in it in the year 2008 did cover more aspects of privacy. So let's talk about Information Technology Act in detail. The Information Technology Act 2000, also known as the IT Act, is an act proposed by the Indian Parliament, reported on 17th October 2000. This Information Technology Act is based on the United Nations Model Law on Electronic Commerce 1996, which was suggested by the General Assembly of United Nations by a resolution dated on 30th January 1997. So this Information Technology Act is based upon the United Nations model, and this model was given out on 30th January 1997. And this model basically talks about promoting digital media, talks about making the transactions, making use of digital signatures, and it gave a brief guidelines of how different countries should adopt these guidelines depending upon their digital abilities. So the IT Act was derived to some extent from the United Nations Model Law on Electronic Commerce, and it was introduced in the year 2000. It is the most important law in India dealing with the cyber crime and e-commerce. A rapid increase in the use of computers and internet has given rise to new forms of crimes like publishing sexually explicit materials in electronic form and breach of confidentiality and leakage of data by intermediaries, e-commerce frauds like personation, commonly known as phishing, identity theft, and offensive messages through communication services. So why this act was introduced, because there was a sudden increase in the usage of computers and internet during the year 2000, and since people were inclining more towards computer because obviously it is a very convenient and a very time-saving machine, and its usage help people do time-consuming work in a very little time. So, but with the usage came certain cons as well. And these cons basically included the breach of confidentiality, sexually explicit materials, and leakage of data by intermediaries and e-commerce frauds. So the most common fraud that exists even today and is on rise even now is phishing and that of identity theft. So phishing is basically when when we all might have got different calls of people that we are calling from so and so bank, and they require us to give them our PAN card details or our Aadhaar number. So those are the phishing calls, because that people, they are not calling from that from the institution that they claim from. They are just making an attempt to derive our information so that they can leak our data, or so that they can misuse our information. So that is what phishing is, and even today, curbing this has been a real challenge for the government, even after the IT Act has been introduced. So the Act provides legal recognition to e-commerce, which facilitates commercial e-transactions. The Act applies to any cyber offense or contravention committed in India by a person irrespective of his or her nationality. So this Act applies to all the cyber offenses that are committed in India, irrespective of whether the crime committed was done by an Indian or by a foreigner or even by a tourist. Okay, the nationality of the accused doesn't matter in the case of cyber offenses. If the cyber offense has been committed in India, the law will be applied irrespective of the nationality. So we have talked a lot about cyber offense. We have heard this word a lot, cyber offense and cyber crimes. So what basically is cyber crime? Let's move on and understand that. So cyber crime basically is the combination of internet and crime. Whenever the crimes are committed on the digital media or digital media, that crimes become the cyber crime. And these have been a real challenge, because initially when digital media came into being and when people started inclining towards social media, Nobody had anticipated that cyber offense would become such a big thing, and there would be a need for a different act just so that the cyber offenses can be curbed. So provisions for cybercrime in the IT Act have been covered under the section 65 to section 69. I have mentioned them below, so we'll discuss that now. To regulate such activities that violate the rights of an internet users, here are some of the sections that empower internet users and attempt to safeguard the cyberspace. The first one is tampering with the computer source documents. So this basically, this section basically talks about altering data that is available on the computers, or deleting the data, or in any way tampering with that data, especially when that data is required to be kept safe by the law. Okay, whenever there is a case going on that requires certain documents that are saved in a computer or in a laptop, and if there is an individual who tries to tamper with that documents, who tries to alter them, who tries to delete them, is considered to be a crime under the IT Act. Next is using passwords for another person. So these things we all have done at one point of time, and if not, then very good. But there have been situations when we try we do that on phones as well. We try to hack somebody else's phone, maybe our friends. We have seen him or her type his or her own password, and then that person is not there, we take his phone and log in on his phone. This is a crime. We do not realize it when we are doing it. Maybe we are doing it because that person is a friend, but it is a crime. You cannot log in on any other person's computer using his or her password. You cannot log in into their mails, or in any website or any application that requires a password. If that individual is not there, using their password to log in or hacking their system is also included under section 66 and is considered to be a crime under the Information Technology Act. And if caught, the individual can be jailed for a period of 7 years with a hefty amount of fine that is around 10 lakhs. So next is publishing private images of other persons. So when we say publishing private images, it also includes clicking them, circulating them, and downloading them. Okay, if we find images of certain people on the internet and without their consent, we cannot download them. Without anybody's consent, we cannot click their pictures, because if we do that, we are invading their privacy, and it is a cyber crime. Okay. Next is publishing child porn and predating children online. So this again, just like the third section, the publishing child porn, clicking pictures of children, or publishing them, or downloading them, or circulating them, or making use of them in any way is considered to be a crime. Also predating children online. There are certain criminals, I would call them, who predate children online. And how they do that is through our social media accounts. We upload pictures of our families. We upload picture of small children in our family, of small babies in our families. We do that just because we want to share those pictures with our friends. But there are certain people who are misusing those pictures, who are predating children through that. Okay. So all these are a part of cybercrime, and the reason why they have been included is because there was an increase in such cases where these things were happening. Next is privacy and social media. So we have been discussing till now, we have discussed what is privacy. We have discussed privacy as a fundamental right. We have discussed the IT Act, and now we'll come to social media, the part that is the most familiar with the youth today. Okay, I have included mainly 6 social media platforms here, and keeping in mind that the youth mostly uses, I'm very sure that the students present in this section would be using at least 3 of these platforms. So we'll move ahead. What is social media? We all use it. We all have been using it since a lot of time. But what is social media? So social media is a digitally created platform used for communication. There are many social networking sites being used by people of all age groups across the world, out of which Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, WhatsApp, etc. are the most common ones. These platforms are although not very old, but have crossed all the records of their popularity and usage in the past few years. The main reason why these sites were introduced was to enable people to form new friends and stay connected to them through a virtual world. But social media is not all a happy place. The reason why I say this, that social media is not all a happy place, is because whenever a new technology is introduced, there are pros and cons to that. Okay, every technology has certain pros and cons to it. And when we talk about social media, although when it was introduced, the thought behind using it was very noble, that we want to make new friends. Everybody is busy in their own lives these days, and it is very difficult to stay connected to your friends, and very difficult to make new friends, because we don't have time to go out and hang out with the people we know. So social media was mainly introduced so that we can make new friends, so that we can stay connected to them through a virtual world, so that we can talk to them there, we can share our pictures with them, we can share our we can share our life with them. Whatever is happening in our life, we can share it with them in the form of let's say posts, in the form of photographs, in the form of videos, we can share with them. This is why social media was introduced, right? But since it gained popularity, and since it was seen that in a very short period of time as well, these platforms have crossed all the records of their usage, and they have become immensely popular, the cons started to emerge. Initially, it was all about pros, and then there were cons as well. So this is why I say that social media is not all a happy place. So these are the different social media platforms that I have explained in just one or two lines. Although we all must be knowing about them, but let's see what these social media platforms are famous for. So Facebook, first is the Facebook. It is a social networking website that allows registered users to create profiles, upload photos and videos, send messages, and keep in touch with friends, families, and colleagues. Key terms that you will hear when using Facebook includes likes, comment, status, friend request, timeline, cover photo, and profile pictures. And guess what? All these are sources for the predators to hack your data. Okay, if somebody wants to collect your data, they can do that through your comments, they can do that through your status updates, through your cover photos, through your profile pictures. Everything can very easily be hacked, and your data can be collected from any of these places. But Facebook is one of the most popular forms of social media platforms. Among all the others that I have mentioned, there will hardly be, I guess, one or two people who would not be using Facebook. Okay, and next is Instagram. Instagram is a social networking website owned by Facebook that focuses on showcasing photos and short videos. Key terms you will hear when using Instagram include like, comments, profile pictures, and story. And one other addition to this is the reels. Ever since TikTok was banned, a new feature was rolled out by Instagram, in which you can upload your very short videos, and just like you used to do in the TikTok, that is the reel. So this another feature is added on Instagram, and users can choose to follow users on business profiles. So this is slightly different from Facebook. On Facebook, you add people as your friends, but in Instagram, you follow each other. Okay, just because you are following somebody doesn't make it compulsory that the other person has to follow you as well. So in case your profile is private, the other person will be able to see your profile or see your photographs or videos only when that person is following you. So it's better to keep your profile private so that you can decide who follows you and who doesn't. Next is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a social networking website that is designed specifically for the business community. The goal of the site is to connect business professionals to other registered members to establish networks of people they know professionally. So I'm not very sure that all of you must be using LinkedIn. But a few years later, when you will be in your final years of graduation, or when you will be working, that time LinkedIn can be of good use for you people, because it helps you connect to other professionals of your field, and helps you to make more and more connections with people that are from your career community. So that is what LinkedIn is about. But there was a time when it was limited only for your careers, only for to connect business professionals. But now, just like all other websites, the LinkedIn is also used now for social networking, for making friends. Next is Twitter. Twitter is a social networking website that allows people to communicate through quick, frequent messages of 280 characters or less. So Twitter is considered to be a microblogging site. Reason being that you you can send your messages in the form of tweets, very small messages in 280 characters or less than that. People write short updates called tweets that are posted to their profiles and shared with their followers. Key terms you will hear when using Twitter include tweet, retweet, follow, and followers and hashtags. So what you basically do in Twitter is that you post a tweet, your followers might retweet them, or maybe if there is a trend going on, then you will use hashtags, and through that hashtag, that single hashtag, all the tweets that have been made can be collected at one place. So that is what the hashtag does. So Twitter is different from Facebook and WhatsApp, because just like in Instagram you have your sorry, just like in Instagram you have followers, the same thing happens in Twitter. But Instagram is an app that basically enables you to share your photographs and videos. And but in the case of Twitter, it helps you update through tweets. They help you communicate with each other with the help of tweets. Moving on, next is WhatsApp. Through the use of internet, WhatsApp allows users to send instant messages, archives, pictures, videos, locations, and voice recordings to other users. The complete system of WhatsApp runs on standard cellular mobile numbers. So WhatsApp is very much different from Facebook and Instagram and all the other platforms that I mentioned, because you can connect with somebody on WhatsApp only if you have their numbers. So this helps make it a little more safer than the other sites. But the other sites like Facebook, they have access to your phone numbers. They ask you to register your phone numbers with them. And Instagram is connected with Facebook. So if you are providing your number on Facebook, it's very easy for somebody using Instagram to access to that. Just give me a second. So WhatsApp is much safer, as I was saying, in comparison to Facebook and Instagram, because it requires your phone numbers to be shared, but your numbers are already shared everywhere on the social media platforms, right? You cannot register on any social media unless you register your phone numbers. And how they take your phone numbers is by telling you that they will be using it for two-step authentication. All right, they send you OTPs on your mobile phones, so that in order to make it more safer on Facebook and Instagram, so that when you type in your password, they will send you an OTP on your phones, and through that OTP only you will able to log into your account. So if you have your phone numbers on Instagram or Facebook, it's very easy for anybody to get your numbers from those platforms and then message you on WhatsApp. And the privacy of WhatsApp was really questioned during the Sushant Singh Rajput case, when the WhatsApp chats of the celebrities was leaked, and that dated back to 2015 and 17. Okay, so if the chats were deleted in 2015 and 17 only, then how in 2020 they were able to access it? So that means whatever messages that we are sending, whatever data that we are sharing with our friends on WhatsApp, it is getting saved somewhere. And even if we are deleting it from our phones, even if we are deleting it from our systems, they are not getting deleted. Somebody somewhere has an access to all the messages that we are sending. That too when WhatsApp claims that the chats are end-to-end encrypted. So that is a big question mark on the safety of our privacy on WhatsApp as well. So next is Snapchat. Snapchat is an image messaging and multimedia mobile app that enables users to convey messages, photos, or small videos through the internet. It also facilitates users to edit their attachments with different inbuilt filters and effects, text captions, and drawings. When Snapchat was introduced, it was considered to be a much safer option than other applications. Reason why? Because Snapchat, when you are sharing your pictures on Snapchat, the recipient cannot save it because a notification will be sent to the sender, right? And also, if the recipient clicks takes a screenshot of that image, the sender again receives a notification about that. So it was believed that Snapchat finally there is an application that is safe to use, and that is Snapchat. But then Snapchat rolled out a feature that was about stories. Okay, that you can share stories that lasted for about 24 hours, and you used to get to know who viewed your stories and who did not, because there was a list of viewers in that. But then a few months back, there was another update that was rolled out that basically was a theme, right? They would be different themes, and you can upload your pictures on that story with that theme. Like for example, at the time of Diwali, there would be stickers, small stickers that Snapchat rolled out that said Happy Diwali, and whatever pictures you clicked, that Happy Diwali sticker, you can paste it on your story. And just like the hashtags work on Twitter, right? Similarly, that stickers work on Snapchat. There is an option of discover on the Snapchat where you can see all the pictures that have a particular sticker. So again, there is no privacy again. Because if you are making your pictures public, if you are making your stories public, everybody can see that. And you cannot keep a record of who saw your picture and who did not. And although when you are sending the pictures, you do get a notification of who is taking a screenshot, but that is not the case with the stories. You do not get to know who took a screenshot of your story, right? So misusing of photographs can very easily happen here. So basically all the 6 apps that I have discussed with you, none of them is completely safe because you don't know what misuse can be done through what pictures. So, okay. Next is privacy and social media. We have discussed about different social media platforms. Okay. So there is a question when a lot of people are using social media, and obviously since a lot of people are using social media, there is some profit that the app developers are making. So why leak our data and make us uncomfortable about using that social media platform? So as social media started gaining pace among the users, it became a perfect platform for marketers also to market their products. And so social media sites started exporting information about the users to third parties. These information can be the pictures that you shared with your family about or your last check-in about the weekend trip, etc. Right when we make an account on any of these sites, they start collecting your personal information. Why do they do that? Because the more personal information of the users they have, the more data they can provide to the advertisers. So this is the reason why our data gets leaked, because social media obviously needs advertisers as well, because that is where they will get the revenue from. So the social exporting information about us, about the users, to the third parties. And these information that are sent to the third parties that constitute mostly the all the data that we have shared on our account on Facebook or on Instagram or any other social media platform. These data could be our last check-in. Okay, maybe we went on a vacation and we put up a check-in about that. tagging all our family members. We uploaded a family picture as well, that too with that too for public viewing, not keeping any filter to the audiences. That mostly happens in Facebook. Whenever we are uploading a cover picture, we cannot hide it from everybody. It is always automatically sent on. It is set on the public audience, right? So this is what Facebook does. Whatever information we are uploading, we are feeding on the social media platform. Uh, that social media app is exporting that information to the third parties. Okay, and it starts right when we are making an account on these sites. We all might have observed this. Whenever we install an application on our mobiles, we get a terms and conditions, and only when we allow that, we can make use of that app. And is there anyone who has read those? I doubt that, because not everybody reads all those terms and conditions, but technically we should. We should be reading all those terms and conditions so that we know what we are signing up for. And then they ask us for our locations. Then they ask us to let the app sync our mobile, sync our all our contacts, to sync our galleries, to sync our location. So basically it is us only who are giving them all our information, right? Why? Because without giving them that information, we will not be able to make use of that application. So this is how this circle goes on and on and on. Privacy concerns on social media have been increasing every day. From hacking to data leakage, there are many concerns that are making users of social media stressful about sharing their information online. Some of these concerns are mentioned below. So finally, let's move on to what could happen if our data is leaked, or what could happen if we put up everything on public audience. So first is account hacking and impersonation. Spammers and hackers are targeting social networks. A compromised social media account makes for an appealing target. If they can get into your Facebook or Twitter account, they can impersonate you. And hacked profile is more effective way to spread viruses and scams. People tend to trust messages they get from their social media friends. They are more likely to click links without thinking twice, which can then infect their computers. So it happened a few months back. I don't know how many of you must have experienced it, but it was in news that it happened to a lot of Facebook accounts, that the profiles on Facebook got hacked, and people were getting links on link through their messengers that was linked with Facebook, and they were asked to click on that link. And since people got this message from the account that was of their friend, they did not think twice before clicking on that link. And as soon as they did that, their computers got hacked. So this is what the spammers and hackers do. It is very easy to hack accounts on Facebook. If people are able to develop apps, it is very easy for them to look out for the loopholes as well in the security. So spammers hack our accounts, and if we get, it's very obvious that if we are getting a message from our friend, we will obviously click the link that our friend is asking us to do. Okay, so we click the link and our computer gets affected. Next is stalking and harassment. Not all social media privacy threats come from strangers. Sometimes people in your life turn out to be less than friendly. Online stalking and cyberbullying have become very well-known threats, and social media makes them very easy to perpetrate. So again, it happens only and mostly when we add random strangers on our account. Okay, we have been told this a lot of times, but not all of us understand it, that we are not supposed to add strangers to our social media profiles. Why? Because we are sharing our family pictures there, because we are sharing a part of our lives on social media platforms. How can we give access to random strangers to that information? Because it's very obvious anybody can misuse them. So all this stalking and harassment mostly happens when you have strangers added on your profile, when you have people who you don't know, when your social media friends, you have some social media friends who you have not met in real life, you add them on your profile, and then I'm not saying or they always do that, but possibility of stalking and harassment happens only when you are adding random strangers in your profile. Next is privacy downside of location-based services. As social media continues to take advantage of mobile devices and location-based services, the potential for privacy and security threats increases. Our social media apps gather our location data and misuse them very often. This happens a lot, especially with Facebook and Instagram. If we are putting up a check-in, okay, if we are putting up a check-in of a particular location, we generally get suggestions of that place, what else there is to explore in that place. How are we getting that? Because that particular social media application is stalking our location. Why? Because we have permitted them to do so. Okay. These social media applications will be able to access our data only because we are allowing them to do it. And why we are allowing them to do it? Because we cannot access their applications without that. Okay, so this is again the circle that I talked about in the previous slide. Moving on, crossing the thin line between effective marketing and privacy intrusions. Facebook and other social media companies are trying to adapt, but there are conflicting interests between serving their paying advertising customers and their social media users. So this everybody must have experienced whenever we are shopping online. Okay, let's say I shop for a watch online. Okay, the moment I search for watches on any shopping website, immediately after that, whenever I open Facebook or Instagram, I start getting suggestions of watches on other shopping websites as well. I start getting offers on that. I start getting prices of the same watch on different websites. How? How does Facebook know what watch I shortlisted? How does Facebook know what color I want? What is my budget for the watch? Because they are tracing everything that I'm doing online. Okay, everything that we do online, no data is safe. There is somebody somewhere who is tracing everything that we are doing. And that is a major privacy concern. Okay. Now, if there is a problem, there is a solution. There has to be a solution. So I have to discuss with you all the problems that happen, privacy problems that are happening on social media platforms. Now, let's discuss how to safeguard your privacy on social media. So just because there is a problem doesn't mean there is a solution. There isn't a solution. By taking certain precautions, we can use these social media sites free of tensions. And following are those solutions. First is reduce the amount of personal information you upload on social media. Let your personal information stay personal. So fine, you have social media platforms. Fine, you like sharing information about yourself on social media, but not everything is supposed to be on social media, right? There is something called as personal life. Let that stay personal. Okay, it is not mandatory for you people to upload all the information or all the daily routine wherever you go to upload that on social media. Reduce the amount of content that you are sharing. जितना कम content share करोगे उतना ही data leak होने के chances कम हो जाएंगे. Okay, next, change your profiles on these platforms from public to private. This is a must do for everybody. Okay, until unless you are a social media influencer, please put your profiles on private. Okay, you people do not have to, there is no need for you to keep your platforms your social media platforms to public. There's no need for that. Keep it to private. Okay, and then upload whatever you want to upload. Not all your pictures should be on public. Okay, all your pictures, especially the pictures that has your home location, that has your family, or that has kids in your family. Okay, don't put those pictures on public. Keep them on private. Next is don't add random people that you do not know on your profile in your profiles. Just like I mentioned in the previous slides, half of the problems on social media will be solved if you stop adding random people on your profiles. Do not, if you don't know an individual, don't let them follow you. Don't add them on your friends. Okay, because you never know who that person is. A lot of times such cases happen that there are profiles that are named with a girl's name, but they are not girls. There are boys who are operating them, and they are the fake accounts, right? Next, remove location tracking from your profiles. Not from your social media only, but also from your phones. All the smartphones these days, they are tracking your locations. right? Always keep your location settings in your phone to use only when using the application. Don't put the location settings to always allow. It's very dangerous because that particular application is tracking where you are traveling and how you are traveling. Okay, so avoid doing that. Next is when uploading photos, do not tag a lot of people. So you do not need to upload having breakfast with 49 others. You do not have to do that because the 49 others that you are tagging, your post, your checking is going on their timeline as well. So why give random strangers the information about what you are having and where you are having? Keep it to yourself. Keep it to your small circle of friends. Okay. When setting passwords, use strong passwords that are not obvious to crack. Never share your passwords with anyone, not even with someone who claims to be your best friend. Sharing your password should be a big no. Okay, if that person is your best friend, he or she would never even ask for your password. Okay, and when you are setting your passwords, please do not use your date of birth. Okay, it's very easy to crack passwords that have your date of birth. Use passwords that are combination of different things. All right, so that it's very difficult to hack, it's very difficult to crack. Fine. Next is, last is, wherever possible, enable two-factor authentication. Yes, I said that Facebook and Instagram especially, they take your phone numbers for enabling two-factor authentication, but that is for your own safety only. Always enable two-factor authentication so that if somebody else tries to log into your account, you get an OTP. And through that OTP, you do get a sign that somebody else is trying to get into your account. So avoid doing that. Okay. Next is respecting privacy of others. When I was starting with this presentation, on the very first slide, I said that when we talk about privacy, it's not just our privacy that should matter to us. The other person's privacy is equally important, maybe not for us, but to them. So when social media platforms were introduced, the developers had little to no idea that their applications could be used for purposes that are not socially acceptable. But there are pros and cons to every invention. Over the years, the concern for fake news has increased manifold. Every day, we come across articles or posts that are not authentic. It is important for us as users to check the authenticity of a post before we share it, because maybe unintentionally, but we might be a party in tarnishing someone's image through our post. So just like Amrish sir explained before my presentation, that fake news is a big problem also when we are talking about privacy, because there are instances when we see a post and without giving it much thought, we share it. A case happened 4-5 years back in Delhi, West Delhi, that there was a argument between a girl and a boy on a traffic signal. Okay, the girl clicked that boy's picture. The girl's name was Jasleen and the boy's name was Sarvajit. The girl clicked the boy's picture and circulated on social media saying that that particular guy was harassing that girl. Okay, without interrogating what the case is, without analyzing the entire case, people started spreading that news. Okay, and that boy's image became viral within a time span of 2 hours. Almost everybody shared that girl's post, writing abuses for that boy, and with writing abuses for that boy's family as well, because they were able to track his Facebook account as well. They started tagging him. There were messages that report him abuse on Facebook so that his account is shut down. And later on, now earlier this year, that boy, the kid went to the court, and that boy proved that he was not harassing. There was an argument between the girl and a boy. They had a fight on that traffic signal. He did not harass her, but just as the girl was responsible, even everybody who shared the post were responsible too, because we did not check the authenticity of that case. We just circulated it, and we were responsible for tarnishing that boy's image. And we were just like I said, everybody has a right to reputation. Okay, he was alive. He was able to clean his image, not completely though, because it will take time for him to clean his image completely, because everybody knows him as somebody who harassed a girl on traffic signal. So it will take time for him to clean his image. So we should take a lesson from such cases and not circulate messages, especially fake news, without checking its authenticity. Then, when we talk about privacy, it is not just our own. A part of right to privacy is also to respect other people's privacy as well. If an individual feels like keeping something private, you should not ignore his or her wishes and invade their privacy. If a person wants to keep his life private, we should let him be. Okay, we should not force anybody, or we should not, in any case, interfere in their personal lives. Lastly, I would conclude my presentation by saying that never do things that you won't like happening to you. Okay, because खुद पे होता है, बहुत बुरा लगता है, दूसरों पे हम करते हैं, we don't realize that what implication it will have on that individual. So with this, I end with my presentation. If you have any questions, you can ask.
Yashashika?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, I'm here. Okay, ma'am, we have two questions. This is from Avnish Chabda. All right. One question is, and both the questions are from Avnish only. So the first question is that in today's life, social media is an important aspect of our lives. I have seen many people get upset when their pictures does not receive the response they expected. Clearly, social media means a lot to them. Is there any way in which we can make people aware the number of likes shouldn't govern our life? How can we make people realize that social media is meant to connect people and not check their popularity?
uh, as much as I know, the people who are so conscious about their social image, that happens only because of peer pressure. They want to look cool among their friends. They want to show it to show it to their friends that see my picture has 100 likes or 200 likes. So it should happen in our own circle only. We should not encourage it. We should not tease somebody if they have less likes on their picture, or if they are not active on social media. Being active on social media doesn't make you cool in any way. Protecting your privacy is what makes you cool. Okay, so yes, social media does affect a lot of people, and it decides what their position is in their friend circle, but it should not happen, and it can only happen if friends only guide each other, because parents cannot guide in everything. Friends should do that too.
Amrisa, would you like to add something to this?
I think whatever Shefali said is correct. Yeah, I
Yes,
endorse
sir.
that.
Okay. Okay, so he's also asked, we all know Twitter is an app where many online fights happen. People often get attacked by trolls. Is there any way to make such a community more friendly and less affected by trolls?
See, it can be done only if the users themselves change their attitudes and accept that everybody has a freedom of their speech and expression. Just because we are not liking somebody's opinion doesn't mean that their opinion is wrong. We should respect that. And जब हम उस चीज को respect करना सीख जाएंगे, we'll stop trolling them.
Agreed.
Not everything requires a reaction.
Agreed, completely
Just
agreed.
that.
I agree with you here. Okay. So there's this question from Sunena who says, ma'am, how do we differentiate between the news, between these news, if they're actually happening? As some news are true, which are not brought to limelight, whereas the ones which are not true are spread rapidly. I guess she's talking about fake news on social media. So how to distinguish between the real and the fake news on social media?
So Naina, we can do that only if we find its authentication, find the source of that news. And अगर कोई फेक न्यूज बहुत जल्दी सर्कुलेट हो रही है, तो वो हम ही लोग सर्कुलेट कर रहे हैं, खुद से तो नहीं हो रही है. सो सर्कुलेट करने से पहले अगर हम उसको चेक करेंगे तो वो सर्कुलेट नहीं होगी.
Uh, Maybe it's not only that, because a lot of time it happens that any news which has an element of sensation, particularly on social media, so any sensational thing will travel fast. There's no doubt about that, whether we like it or not, but it happens. So, but then it again, I mean, nothing can be said for sure on social media. Social media is such an unpredictable thing. Sometimes you do a lot of good things, you post a lot of good contents, but they do not travel that fast. And sometimes the contents which are not so good travel very fast. But then it can be the other way around as well. A lot of times this happens that number of people put a very sensible post and they also become viral. Like, I mean, this Babaji Ka Dhaba of this
Mm.
Malviya Nagar thing, it traveled very fast. So it was all in good taste. It was a human angle content, but then it traveled fast. So it's not that good content do not travel fast. There are so many things linked to this in social media, and whatever little I know about social media, what time you are posting your post. I mean, in the 24 hours time, in morning or in evening or late evening or early morning, that matters. And then your tagging matters, how many people you are tagging. And then the people who have been tagged, how much friend strength they have. So because the people that you are tagging, your post will be on the wall of those people. So, and then the people that you have tagged, they might be sharing it further with somebody, or some of the friends of the people who have been tagged, they might be sharing that post and putting it on their wall. And then the I mean the kind of this keywords that you are using, that will help you in a fast travel of your post. And then the hashtags that you put. So, I mean, something happens on its own, and something happens by making some extra efforts. If you understand the social media, then you can make sure how your post will travel fast and then can become something which we call the viral on the social media. So, those factors are also important.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we have another question from Samriddhi Shukla. She's saying there are several online chat rooms which claim complete anonymity for their users. Are these claims true?
Honestly, I do not really know about these chat rooms. So I'll,
Uh, yeah. Samriddhi, if I would like to answer on behalf of, I would like to answer this question. So, for example, this depends from platform to platform. For example, there is this app I'm not remembering right now, but I can tell you there's in WhatsApp we have end-to-end encryption. All right, end-to-end encryption ensures that the messages that we are, if you're sending someone messages and everything and then you delete it, then the source of that message is difficult to find. And there is one more app which is similar to WhatsApp, where it is very difficult to trace the source. All right, and you can even delete your message, and it was I'm so sorry, I'm not remembering the name. It was in fact in a lot of controversy, because even terrorists started using that app to communicate. So people it got a lot of bad ratings and everything. But when it comes to anonymity, you're talking about specifically chat rooms. um, um, uh, for example, I can only talk about WhatsApp here, and one more which ensures end-to-end encryption. Otherwise, anonymity is one thing which everybody thrives on social media. That is how this trolling and all keeps on taking place. So being anonymous is one of the things on social media that is, everyone, I can name myself anything and write anything, nobody will come to know. So in some of the chat rooms, the anonymity is there, no doubt. The technology has granted it. However, I'm not sure which particular chat room you're asking about.
But then anonymity can be possible to some extent if we look into the fake account on the account with pseudonyms on Facebook.
Yes,
But
yes.
but it's not possible on WhatsApp, because WhatsApp will be possible when you have a mobile phone number. This may happen that you would have acquired a SIM with your fake identity, and then you are using that SIM for creating the WhatsApp account. And even if it is traced, because you are not a actual person, you are not a genuine person, you are a fake person, and that is how you're operating on WhatsApp, then there can be anonymity, like the real person is not in the front. But otherwise, anonymity, I believe, may be possible, as Yashasika, you said, on certain apps. So, but otherwise, it is not possible on whatever social platform we are exposed to.
Yes, sir. So, in fact, Ritik sir just helped me with that app. It was Telegram, the Telegram app where anonymity can be ensured on that chat room. Okay, sir. So, moving on, we have this question. Sometimes authentication of real and fake news becomes very difficult on social media. So, how should we go forward with it?
Amrish sir, would you like to answer this question?
What exactly was the question?
So the question from Sunena is that how to check the authentication between fake news and real news on social media.
This has already been told. The whole session on fact checking was there. So, Sunena, you can watch the video of the session, which was taken by Mr. Nimish Kapoor. It happened perhaps on Thursday last
Yes, last Thursday.
22nd. So 22nd का जो YouTube पे जो video है, which I believe would have been made available to you. So just watch it. This was on fact checking only.
Yes.
So, but then, I mean, the tools are available, but then one tool which is very much ready made always, if you doubt on the information. So you have to have that kind of sense that if you have even the least doubt about the information which is there on your WhatsApp or Facebook, go to the Google and cross check that information. So that will be instant. That will not take much time. So don't forward any such information wherein you have even the least doubt that there may be something wrong. This is could be the instant. The other is the fact check. And there are so many fact checking websites. You can seek their help also. Or I mean, almost 12, 13 fact checking websites which are there. They're always there for your help. So just find out about those fact checking websites, and then take their help. Like Alt News is there, and Yashasika perhaps may add some more websites. The people who are working, like this Pratik Sinha is working this Alt News, then this
Boom Live.
Pankaj Jain's, what's the name, Yashasika, of that website?
So
That Pankaj
there's
Jain?
Alt News, there's Boom Live, and the Quint has also started their fact checking, known as Webkoof, and almost every channel, almost every website has, a
Your
website,
fact checking.
and even Ritik, Sunena. So we have shared with you the session for fact checking that we conducted. Has been shared in the chat
So
box. So you can.
if Ritik Ghosh is there in the session, he can add further on this. Ritik, you are there? At least respond. If you are online, you can come online, you can respond to the question.
So there's some lighting issue. So I think it has all been said by you and Yashasvika ma'am and Shefali ma'am.
No, about fact checking, the question that Sunena asked, if you can add something, whatever we said, we have very little knowledge on that, but obviously this is your forte.
Yes, the most important aspect is like you have to see where it is coming from, the credibility, the source, who has published it, who is the author, which website does it belong to, is that website authentic or not. So all these things you have to say.
Even
Check.
the headline, you should also check the headline. You see,
Yes.
generally what happens when you check the headlines, you will notice that there are some spelling mistakes, and always check the source. Okay, there's one more, in fact, not just all the, Sunena, you should see all the lectures, in fact, because I took one lecture on critical thinking and source verification. So always check the source. Where is this article coming from? Is it a legitimate source or not? That is one very important factor that you should keep in consideration while looking for news on social media. And one more thing is that if you are in doubt, don't forward it. First check it. Very important. The purpose of this whole course is to make you media smart and question. And before you think of forwarding of any news, just first fact check on your own basis. Go on, like sir told about, all these fact checking websites. If it's not available on fact checking websites, check for legitimate news sources like India Today, Times of India. If you don't even find it there, don't share it. Wait for some time, because if it's such a big breaking, it's quite sure that it will come, it will be reported on legitimate news channels.
Yeah, one more thing I can add here. Make it a policy. Never forward a forwarded message.
Agreed.
Good or bad.
Yes, sir.
Zenia, without going into this, whether it's right or wrong, never forward a forwarded message. Always forward the links which are from credible sources. Credible sources means the links of that news or that video which would have been released by the mainstream media organizations or the organizations which you know. So forward only the links. Then the onus is not completely on you. The onus is also on that web portal or that website or that newspaper or the news channel whose link you are forwarding. So we have made it a policy in our institute. Whatever groups we have, nobody is forwarding anything. Only the links are being forwarded.
Yes, sir. So, sir, we don't have any more questions. So, would you like to give some concluding remarks, sir?
I think there's a very good discussion has happened, which was precipitated by Shefali, and so many questions came, and that is how we got a chance to further deliberate and answer these questions. So I think that's it, and we should wind up the session.
Sure, sir.
And then Yashasika, you need to make all those important announcements that we need. Yeah.
I'll do that, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, so thank you, Ms. Shefali Chibbar, for this enriching and insightful session. Today, we learned about the important concept of privacy. We learned what to share, what not to share on social media. This reminds me of the new advertisement of Apple iPhone, which says not everything is worth sharing on social media. Most importantly, Ms. Shefali Chibbar emphasized that privacy has to be respected, yours and others too. Students, this is the culmination of media literacy course. It gives me immense pleasure to announce that you have successfully completed the 18 hours of media literacy training. To reinforce the learnings, we will be evaluating you as informed earlier. The questions will be based on the basic concepts of media literacy. We will be sharing the presentations with you on the mailing list, and you can view the lectures on our official YouTube channel on DME TV, and the links have been shared in the chat box. The evaluation link will be shared with you tomorrow at 5 p.m. The link will be live till 5 p.m. on 30th October 2020. It will also be shared on the mailing list. I would like to thank Dr. Asha for her constant contribution and coordination for this course, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary and Dr. Amrish Saxena for their constant guidance. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank my colleague, Mr. Ritik Ghosh, who has provided us with digital assistance wherever required, and Dr. Susmita Bala for her constant support in seamless organization of this course. The course has been very insightful, enriching, and personally fulfilling for me, as I have learned a lot from the resource person from Adamas University, Kolkata and Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida. I would also like to thank the students who have enriched the deliberations with their questions like today. As informed already, we will have a valedictory function on 31st October 2020, Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a grand conclusion of this course. The link will be shared with you on the mailing list. Thank you for being patient listeners. See you on Saturday, 31st October 2020. Thank you. See you on Saturday.